Hey Jonathan, if you are a real rocket scientist, why are you running for office? Why don't you go in space instead?
Radio Free Santa Clarita presents The Talk of Santa Clarita, a podcast about issues involving Santa Clarita and the surrounding valley. With your host, Stephen Daniels. Episode 171. Democratic candidate for the 38th District in the California Assembly, Jonathan Ahmadi. And now, let's see what the Talk of Santa Clarita is.
And remember, this is for posterity, so be honest.
Jonathan Ahmadi, welcome to the Talk of Santa Clarita.
Thank you for having me, Stephen.
It's we've had a couple of glitches here trying to get things set up, but I'm hoping that foreshadows. It's like we're pre-disaster.
Let's hope so.
The tent's fallen over. I've fallen over my chair.
Fingers crossed. Knocking on wood.
Nothing was working.
Salt over the shoulder. All the things.
So let me start with something that might throw you a little bit.
Okay.
This is a question that I had more than one person say you got to ask. Okay.
All right.
What's it like to be impossibly good looking? and by that, do you realize, that you're a really good looking guy? I can say that because we're right out of Pride Month. So
wow.
Right, so I can,
yeah. Listen, you should be able to say that anytime. It doesn't have to be just right out of Pride Month. What's it like to be impossibly good looking?
Let's face it. You and your wife are photogenic as hell. I see your pictures on Facebook and I go, I wish I could.
You're right. I was prepared for just about anything, and that did throw me.
Yeah, I figured. Well, now my phone's going off. Where did I do with my phone? Well, I told you we were pre-disaster.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. All right.
So
I threw you on that one.
You did.
You're a good-looking guy, right?
Yeah. So
is Brad Pitt aware, kind of thing,
Right. I am aware, but I wasn't always. Yeah. And I was having this conversation with somebody just a week ago, and she was telling me about her son that, it was actually a problem for him that one of her three sons was really, really handsome, and that he just was treated very differently in life, in all things, and that when she was saying 16 or 17 years old, he had a number of parking tickets.
Yeah.
And that she was hoping that the judge would look at that and, try to not punish him severely, but have there be consequences for the choices that he made. And that, she kind of smiled at him and just, it's okay, like, we're all kids once and you're going to learn from this. And it's like, well, no, you learn by having consequences to your actions.
Right.
But I grew into my face.
You were awkward as a child?
I was really, really awkward as a child. I mean, I'm the kid there are pictures of me at the beach, like beach trips, and my hair is all over the place, and I've got snot dripping down my face, and there's sand everywhere. And so as I'm sure you're aware, I was at one point working in the entertainment industry and wanted to be an actor. And I had an acting teacher who told me, he said, listen, Jonathan, you're never going to go out for the supporting character roles. They'll never cast you in that. Yeah. They'll only cast you as a leading man. And you have to come to terms with that. You have to accept it. And you have to lose about 20 pounds, which is when I pretty much cut out all the fast food and, sweets and pretty much all the alcohol too. And it's amazing how fast you lose weight when you cut out fast food and sugars and alcohol. But yeah, it's something that you asked me the question and my cheeks flushed and I got embarrassed, so it's something that I think I still, have to come to terms with, that that's how people see me.
the reason to bring it up is because I do remember when you were working for Katie Hill that someone said, "Have you met Jonathan yet?" You know, it's. It's one of those things you kind of wonder, like, on the opposite end of the spectrum, because, like, for me, like, the acting coach would tell me, you're forever going to be the loser buddy that says, "Why are you with that girl?"
Yeah.
You know, so maybe we could do a buddy movie together or something like that.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I don't think it'd be very successful, but, like, we'd have a good time doing it.
Yeah. But, you know, you wonder, like, do you feel frustrated, like, don't judge me on my looks, you know, or, you know,
you don't get to, I mean, like, you don't get to, I'm not going to sit here and tell you there aren't benefits from being handsome and attractive in our society.
Yeah.
Like, of course there are.
Yeah.
But you don't get to have those benefits and then say, oh, like, how dare you look at me and judge me. You take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
And in some ways I have to win people over first. They have to get to know me. They have to get to know my heart. They have to hear me talk and understand that there's more than just a pretty face. And, you know, that's just par for the course in the territory, you know.
How's the campaign been going for you so far?
So we launched a week ago, and
so it's new.
Yeah, it's new.
Any surprises so far?
So I met with Kip Muller before, I think it was 2 days before I launched, and he sat down and he told me, look, Jonathan, there's going to be really good days, and there's going to be really bad days.
Yeah.
And you don't get to control when you're going to have a good day. You don't get to control when you're going to have a bad day. They just are, and you have to take them all in stride, and you use the good days to fuel you through the bad days. And I feel really lucky that so far I've had a lot of good days, and so I'm banking those good days.
8 days into it.
Exactly, right? So I'm banking those for when there are more tough days ahead, of which I'm sure there will be.
Well, let's get to know you a little bit. You grew up in California, correct? Where in California?
I was born in San Jose.
San Jose,
Yep.
okay.
I grew up in a sleepy little community called Willow Glen in San Jose. Was there until I was 17, moved down here in 2001 to go to school, which, I mean, if you told me I moved down to Southern California 20 years ago, I'd say that's insane. But, I mean, 2001 was 20 years ago, and I don't know really how we got here, but here we are. And I've lived in Southern California ever since. I moved down to LA and have lived in Santa Clarita since 2019 and been working here since 2018 when I was working on the campaign.
Okay. So for Katie's campaign, Katie Hill's campaign.
That's
correct.
right.
Okay. You went to school at UCLA, is that right?
That's right. I graduated in 2005 with an aeronautical engineering degree.
See, you're a friggin' rocket scientist. A friggin' rocket scientist. Good-looking friggin' rocket scientist.
And married to a beautiful, wonderful woman.
Married to an extremely attractive woman. So
wonderful
woman. Yes. Well, I haven't met her, so I wouldn't know if she's wonderful. But
hopefully one day you get to.
Let's hope so. Why are you doing what you're doing if you could be flying in rockets?
Well, part of the problem is that I don't think I actually could have been flying in rockets.
Right.
You know, my whole life I thought I wanted to design airplanes. I was the kid who at 4 told my mom that that's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And in history class, I'm doodling airplanes in my notebook instead of paying attention. There were two things that happened. One, the industry is not designed in such a way where we're really making a lot of new innovative advances in aircraft technology, right? We aren't designing new airplanes. The 737 that I flew on 2 weeks ago to Atlanta is basically the same 737 that we were flying in 20 years ago, right? And so there's not a lot of new advances in aircraft.
Yeah.
And part of that is it's just so expensive to design new aircraft, and there's so much risk involved that it just makes sense to, if you know it works, just keep doing that. And then the other part of it is that the very first internship I had was working for Lockheed Martin. And I was working on a program where it was the life extension program for the D5 Triton ballistic missile, right? Nuclear submarines. And we had just invaded Iraq. Bush was president. And I remember thinking, I'm working on ballistic missiles, nuclear missiles that could kill millions of people, potentially. And I didn't vote for this president who has say over how these weapons would be used, how they'd be implemented. And that was something that just didn't sit right with me. I couldn't live with the possibility of the fact that I'd be making weapons of war that could kill millions of people and have not the final say over how they were going to be implemented.
You actually quit doing aeronautical engineering based on your morals? Really? That's impressive.
Yeah. Well, so I want to take a step back and say that I have no problems with somebody who says that, what they're working on is something that they believe in, they think that the country should have for defense of the nation. Like, I completely accept that.
Yeah.
That was not my experience. My experience is that there are kind of core teams of engineers, and there are projects that come and go, and those teams of not just engineers, but support staff and project managers, they get moved from project to project to project, and really have very little say in what they're going to get to work on.
Yeah.
And these are people who are, paying off their mortgages, they're putting their kids through college, they're getting health insurance. So I don't even know that you necessarily could say that they have the flexibility to make that moral choice.
Right, sure.
This is something I can't do anymore. And so I consider myself really lucky that I had that experience at a time when I was still young and could transition from that industry to another one. And the reality is in aeronautics and aerospace, there's so many of the applications that are used for defense that you don't even necessarily know how something might eventually be used. So yeah.
And then it's your bio said that you worked in the entertainment industry, but it was vague on what it was. What were you doing?
So I spent 10 years in the entertainment industry, and when you're in Southern California and you're trying to break in, you do a little bit of everything.
So you were you were a struggling actor.
So I was a struggling actor, and that included I made bagels at one point.
Okay.
I babysat my kid's neighbor. I worked as a production manager for a drapery and upholstery company, office manager for an interior design firm. I worked as a theater manager at the school that I studied acting at, and I worked as the creative director for a really small production company. Like, you do just about everything, but you get exposed to so many different people.
Right.
It's fantastic.
Saying you worked in the entertainment industry sounds better than struggling actor or waiter, or server or whatever. But what did you just give up on that, or did you decide not?
No. So
did you have any credits that we would know?
So it's funny. There are times when I'll be working and somebody's like, "Oh my gosh, I saw you in XYZ, right?
Yeah.
I saw you in the show, or I saw you in that thing." And it's funny because to me it feels like a lifetime ago already. But there's stuff out there that you could see. And what ended up happening finally was that, I was grinding for a really long time, and I had met a writer and director doing a student film, and in the production company that I was working for, there was a young producer who was up and coming, and I co-wrote a feature film with the friend, and the producer wanted to make a movie, and he liked our script, and so I mean, that was a crazy story all in its own. We don't even have enough time to go through that, but we went to Romania. We were there for 3 months. We shot the feature film. I starred in it. My buddy was the director. My other buddy was a producer. And we got back, and I realized that I was never going to have the career that I had wanted to have in entertainment when I started.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know that I had the talent, but I definitely didn't have the connections and the networking or the money to be able to sustain that.
Yeah.
And I made myself a promise that I was never going to be that guy that everybody knows who's 50 years old, and to your point, right, a struggling actor working as a bartender or waiter somewhere.
I had a similar situation with my screenwriting career.
And
you come to a point that
I made that promise to myself that I was not going to do that, and I gave it everything I had. And there's a lot of people who never even get as far as I did of starring in a feature film that I co-wrote.
What was the feature film called?
Far From Here.
Far From Here? Is that available anywhere? Can someone download it?
I know that it was available on Amazon at one point. I don't know if it still is. I've never,
I'm going to go look as soon as I get home.
I've never seen it, so you'll have to tell me how it is. I've never watched it.
So an actor doesn't like to watch his own work.
I can't. It's horrific. Like I just see all of the little things. Like I'm not going to be able to watch this podcast later because I'm just going to look at it and be like, "What were you doing with your hand in that moment?" Right? Like, something nobody else would ever even notice, but I see it and pick it all apart.
I literally at this point just kind of go, "You can't worry about it anymore," So what do you do now? What is your job now?
Yeah, so I work in project management in healthcare. We do transition and activation planning. And to boil that down, we help hospitals, healthcare organizations when they're either building a new hospital, renovating a new one, building a new clinic, something like that. They hire us. We come in and we help them with planning how they're going to work in their new space, helping them to get licensed, making sure that the building is fit up and has all the equipment in it that's appropriate for healthcare, that we train their staff, we make sure that they have a plan to train their staff, and then when they're going to move in and activate the building, we come in, and the last move that I did was at NYU, and we moved over 200 patients in a day from 3 different towers into a brand new building. And I mean, those are the fun days, right? You spend a year and a half or 2 years building up to those events and those days.
Have you always wanted to be a politician, though? I mean, do you think?
No.
No. When did this change for you?
Well, I've always been interested in politics, right? I mean, Jon Stewart is my hero. I love
Jon Stewart. Yeah,
The Daily Show was my favorite.
When he was on there, I
religiously watched The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and I'd always, follow the news in the New York Times or the Washington Post or the LA Times, and I'd always be aware of what was happening, but I just assumed that people in politics, that was their goal forever, much like mine had been to be an engineer, that they knew the right people and they had the right name and they went to the right school and they studied the right thing and they had the right connections to do it. But Trump changed everything for me. 2016 changed everything for me, right? There was nothing about him that represents me and my values and the things that I love about this country, and it was stunning to me. It was stunning. I thought the night that Trump won the nomination, I was like, that's it. Hillary is going to be the first female president, there's no way that this person gets into office. And it shook me to my core. Because I love this country and I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand how people could vote for him, how they couldn't see through the lies, how they couldn't see through the con. And I just knew I had to do something. I had to make my voice heard, my frustration, my anxiety. And so in 2018, I quit my job. And through a friend of a friend of a friend, somebody pointed me in the direction of a canvas, which I'd never done before, and I was terrified, right? I had no idea what was going to happen. Like, what were people going to say to me? Were they going to be mean to me? Were they going to slam the door in my face? What's going to happen? And I'll always remember that first canvas. It was July 1. It was in Simi Valley. It was over 100 degrees, like it's going to be today. But 200 people, strangers, showed up to go knock on doors, to express their values, to have their voice be heard, to have it count for something, right? To take back a part of the government, to flip the House and hold Trump accountable, have some lever of power. And that to me was incredible. It was absolutely incredible.
And this was working for Katie and Christie's campaign, correct? Or
it was Katie. So I started volunteering on Katie's campaign. I found the field organizer afterwards, and they had no idea what to do with me. Right, I'm this 30-something-year-old man. They're all in their 20s, like right out of college. I was older than the candidate, right? And I told them, I said, I'm here. I'll do whatever you need for a month. After that, I've got to get a job and I've got to pay my bills. But I'll do whatever you need for a month.
Right.
And 6 weeks later, I was lucky enough to get hired. I was hired by the California Democratic Party as a field organizer. I was kind of loaned out to the Katie and Christie campaigns. And then when Katie opened, when the campaign opened a field office in Simi Valley, they shipped me out to see me, and I went and ran that campaign office.
I see.
And it was incredible. It was incredible.
How do you feel now about Katie with everything that happened with her? I mean, a lot of people feel a little disgruntled, about what happened with her. There's some that say she brought it on herself. Others are saying that it was kind of a hit job and stuff like that. I'm just curious what it was like to be in the offices when all this was coming down. About the scandal and everything like that with her. And I mean, tell me about your experience with that.
It was horrific.
Yeah. How so?
It was horrific. I mean, that campaign and that staff were made up of people like myself who cared about serving, who cared about government, who wanted to make and affect change for people in their lives. And I still, to this day, am really frustrated with the fact that team went away, right? That team came apart. And you say people are disgruntled. I think people were heartbroken by what happened. And I first want to say that I think it's unconscionable the way in which Republican operatives in this community went after Katie by using those pictures against her, by putting that out there, right? Yeah. And I can't imagine anything in the world that my wife, that Ashley, could do to me that my response would be to betray her trust in the way in which Katie's trust was betrayed by Kenny. Yeah. I can't imagine what that's like. And yet, there are lines in the sand that we draw. And we say, in elected office, right, you cannot have sexual relationships with members of your staff. Yeah. And when those lines are crossed, there have to be consequences. There have to be repercussions. And so I think it was right for her to resign. Yeah. I think that had she not, we probably would have lost the seat anyways. Yeah. And my biggest hope for Katie is that, she experienced trauma. Sure. In an abusive relationship. And that my biggest hope for her is that she finds the space to be able to heal from that trauma and reflect on what happened to her and how she participated in any of that, and that she's able to come back at some point, because I do think that her voice is one that's needed in politics. I think that she had an authenticity about her that really connected with people, but she has to go and take care of herself first before she can come and represent us.
I'm
again.
Curious though about, there were some allegations made afterwards, after she stepped down, about her also being kind of abusive to her staff. Yeah. Is that true? Do you
I never experienced that.
Never experienced that?
I never experienced that. So I was her senior district representative. Right. My job was based here in Santa Clarita. I never even got to go to DC in the whole time she was in office. Yeah. I don't know what happened in DC, but I certainly didn't experience any of that myself personally.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about you, because that's really what we're here for anyway. So, where did you meet your wife at, first off?
Well, my wife and I we met through mutual friends, and we'd known of each other for probably about 10 years before we started dating. And she was always somebody who I was really, really interested in. Yeah. And wanted to get to know better, but I was always in relationships, she was always in relationships. And there came a point, it was about 5 years ago now, where I'd come back from Romania. I was working in project management at the time, and I had more flexibility in my schedule. And her mom had been diagnosed with ALS about 10 years ago, and 5 years ago had to move in with Ashley because of a terrible situation that she found herself in. And so Ashley was having a really tough time. She was working down in Torrance. We were living in West LA at the time, and she couldn't figure out how to get her mom with significant mobility issues to doctor's appointments at Cedars-Sinai in downtown. And there was one day where she and I were just chatting, and she's like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And I said, well, I can take your mom to the doctor. Like, I've got an hour during the day that day. And that's where things started.
Percolate, I guess.
Yeah, and then afterwards there was a walk on the beach, and we went out on I don't think either one of us knew it was a date, but we both fell really madly in love with each other.
Wow.
And yeah.
How long have you been married?
We got married May 10 of 2019.
Just 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years.
No kids yet, right?
No kids, no.
No kids? You gonna have kids, or is that the discussion still to...
it's something that we talk about, but we got started a little bit later in life. Yeah. And so we've thought about, the idea of adopting at some point, but if we do choose to go that route, then I want to be in a position where we'd be much more available to help raise a kid. I grew up in a situation where my mom was working and my dad stayed home and helped to raise me and my brother, and it makes a real difference being able to have that real time with your child, to be able to raise them.
You've done a lot of different things. You've been an actor, you've been an aeronautical engineer, rocket scientist. You're doing project management now, I guess, and things like that. Are you having trouble finding yourself? Is that what it is?
No, I don't think so at all.
You don't think so?
No, I think that I think that everything that we do informs and becomes a part of who we are.
Yeah.
I think that I will always be an engineer. I'm not working as an engineer right now, but the way in which my brain thinks through a problem is the way in which an engineer, you start big, you break it down into smaller pieces until you get to a manageable piece that you can figure out how to solve this problem, and you make a solution for it, and then you move on to the next one, and you move on to the next one, and that's just the way in which my
spoken like an engineer, right?
Exactly,
there.
Right? I will always be an engineer, even if I'm not working as one. I will always be an entertainer, right? I love telling stories. I love being able to move somebody with the power of story, and I just think that this is the culmination of something, right? That everything that I have done in my life has built to this point where now I feel like I have the ability to go out and represent people and advocate for them and be their voice, because I've lived so many different lives, because I've had so many different jobs. I've been able to experience so many different ways in which people experience life, and I think that's an important part of being able to represent them and be able to speak for them and advocate for them.
Why are you a Democrat? What is it about being a Democrat that appeals to you?
I mean, that's the easiest question that you've asked me today. My values...
We'll go back to you being good looking.
My values align with the values of the Democratic Party. And really what it comes down to is I believe that government, and really the function of government, is to be able to help provide for those least fortunate in our communities, right? The people who maybe can't take care of themselves, who can't advocate for themselves, who don't have a voice. And I think that that's really one of the pinnacle functions of government.
You were going to run for city council last year. What changed with that? Why did you drop out of that race? And what happened?
2020 was such a crazy year for so many reasons and for so many people. I announced the campaign in January of 2020. In February, the city received a petition to comply with the California Voting Rights Act. In March, the city council voted 5-0 to transition to district-based elections. And so I suspended my campaign to form an independent districting committee so that there would be a version of maps available to the public that I felt were fair and representative of our history and
You did that on your own accord? No one asked you to do it, or?
No one asked me to do it.
You just set it up?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Well, I mean, so I'll say this.
You know what I would have done? Turn it on Netflix and chill.
So I think it's critically important that voters get to choose their representatives and not the other way around. Right? And the way in which it's structured is that the city council will get to vote on the maps, the way that the maps are drawn for how they're elected. Right? And I wanted to ensure that there was at least one option out there that was something that I felt was fair and representative. And through the work that I did for the congressional office, for Katie, I had the opportunity to be always everywhere in the community. If there was a Chamber of Commerce event, I was there. If it was a Veterans Collaborative event, I was there. If there was a Sierra Club event, I was there. And
I'm looking at all this on your
Through
bio.
all of those opportunities, I got to meet people that then when I wanted to do something like this, I could pick up the phone and call Diane Troutman and say, Diane, I've got this idea. I want you to be a part of it based on the work that you've done in this community. I got to call Dr. Phil Gusson, and then he brought on Jason Bergdorfer, and at that point we had a core group of people that we thought could really do something, and we opened it up to the community to invite 7 other members to participate in the process.
Why aren't you running for city council now? What changed to make you run for 8038?
Yeah, well, I think part of it is that for me, I see myself as the person who's best positioned to be able to take that seat back. Right?
Why?
Because of the work that I've done in the community, because of my values, because of my ability to connect with people and to articulate those values and those ideas and the solutions to the challenges that I see here. I think that positions me to best win and take this seat back. And the other thing that I'll say is that we don't even know what the district boundaries are going to be, right?
Right.
But the city of Santa Clarita is going to be roughly 235,000 people when we get the census data. The valley as a whole is going to be 300,000 people.
Right.
And an assembly district is roughly 440, 450,000 people. Mm-hmm. So no matter how it's drawn, Santa Clarita is not going to be divided among districts.
A loud car.
That is a loud car.
Yeah.
300,000, 2/3 of whatever district we're going to be in are going to be from Santa Clarita. Yeah. And I think that the representative of that district should be connected with the people in that district and should understand the issues and their challenges and concerns and should have connections. And I think that's me. And the last thing that I'll say about that is we deserve representation that reflects our values, right? There were more votes for Democrats in the primary of 2020 for Assembly than there were for Republicans. And we have a Democratic majority in terms of registration.
Right.
We deserve a representative who hears us and who shares our values.
Well, what is Suzette doing that we're talking about? Suzette Martinez Valadares that is currently in the position. What is she doing that's bad, I guess, per se? Or I mean, what would you be doing differently?
Yeah. So, well, there's two things that I'd say first, right? I love that meme, the Patrick Stewart meme, where he's like, you had one job, right? You have one job. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And she has one job, which is to represent us and to show up for votes, right?
Yeah.
To say, yes, this is something I believe in,
right?
Or no,
right?
This is a different direction than I think that we should be going in. And that's the position that the voters of this district put her in. And she has a responsibility to go there and stand up and use her voice to say yes or no. And the fact that she dodged a vote on recognizing pride is, to me, mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Right? How can you not stand up for people in this community and say that, yes, we see you. You are a part of us. You are our brothers and our sisters and parents. Right? That, to me, it's political cowardice is what it is, right? It's being terrified of the base and not wanting to take positions to challenge them, but in doing so, you're not representing us and you're not doing the job that you were sent there to do. The other part of that, too, is that we live in California where we have a supermajority Democratic legislature and a Democratic governor, which means that we have the real opportunity to pass meaningful change, unlike what we can do at the federal level.
Right.
And what that means is that Suzette, as a Republican, is ineffectual. She's not at the table when the decisions are getting made. She doesn't have the opportunity to bring resources back to this community in the same way that a Democrat could. In Christy Smith's first year, she brought $450,000 in grant money for the Senior Center. $450,000, almost $500,000. And she brought $700,000 in grant money for Simi Valley, for their community center, their multi-purpose center, right? Suzette's not going to have the opportunities to be able to do that.
Just because she's a Republican.
Just because she's a Republican. And that's a shame.
Well,
it shouldn't be that way. But the fact of the matter is...
It is.
Yeah. It's not going to change tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a little bit of actually my big question is, how do you get your voice heard among the other Democrats in Sacramento? I mean, there is what you're saying is a logical argument about bringing money here because of the Democrats having the supermajority.
Which is our money.
Yes.
Those are our taxpayer dollars that we're paying to the state that we need for the programs and services here that we believe in, right? For the work that the Senior Center is doing.
But how do you get your voice heard? I mean, like, the cynical Republican will say, well, you're just going to be told what to do. You're going to be told how to vote. You're going to vote party line, on everything. So you're not really another voice for, out there. You're just going to be stepping in line with the rest of the Democrats. How do you respond to something like that?
Well, I feel like that's two questions, right?
Okay.
You asked me how do you get your voice heard, and then you asked me how do you represent people, right?
Yeah.
How do you get your voice heard is sadly through money. Right? I'm going to have a really aggressive field campaign. I'm going to be out there in the community. I'm going to be in people's, backyards and living rooms talking to them about the ideas. But
I'm talking about actually having your voice heard in Sacramento.
Sure. I think you have to show political courage. You have to stand up and say that my job is not to be here to get reelected. My job is to be here and represent my constituents. And I think that that's a really critical part of the job, is standing up and saying, this is what I believe in. And if there are political consequences for those things, then so be it. And if you don't get reelected for those things, then so be it. Your job is not to get reelected. Your job is to represent people, to represent their values, and to be their voice.
Let's talk about a couple of the topics that you, full disclosure, our audience, I allow the guests to give some ideas of the things they'd like to talk about. One of the things that stuck out to me for you was that you talked about you wanting to, one of the issues with senior care.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. What is it about that appeals to you about, and what do you want to do?
I'm going to be completely honest with you.
Okay.
Had I not had the personal experience of Linda, Ashley's mom, living with us, this would not have been one of my top issues. Right? It's not something that's at the forefront of most people's minds.
And that's why I was kind of...
And yet, so many of us have to deal, all of us, in fact, I'd say, except in the circumstance of tragedy, have to deal with what are we going to do when our parents age? And what do we do, God forbid, if they age and there's something else going on like ALS or dementia? And the fact of the matter is, if you have money, you're very well taken care of here, right? We could have put Linda at Oakmont of Valencia, and she would have been really well cared for.
Yeah.
And it would have cost us $10,000 a month.
Oh, let me get my checkbook for you.
Right?
Yeah.
That's 3 mortgages in some places.
Yeah.
We didn't have that kind of money. And if you don't have the money personally to be able to put your loved ones in that kind of care, then the care that you receive is immoral. Right? It's terrible, the conditions that people are living in these skilled nursing facilities and nursing homes. And we just have to do better. We have to, and we can. And the fact of the matter is there's so many resources that are being put towards that issue. Right?
Yeah.
There are so many people who are working really hard to try to provide good care for our seniors.
But give me some concrete, like what is it you would want to do? What kind of bill would you put before the assembly to help with elderly care?
So I think that the system needs to be rebuilt from the ground up for senior care in this country.
Okay.
One of the committees that I would want to be a part of is the Committee on Aging.
Okay.
Right? And the reason for that is that we piecemeal put programs in place to be able to tackle challenges, and in doing so created unintended consequences for people who are trying to care for their loved ones. Right? There's a program where you can get somebody to come into your home and help take care of a loved one if they need a certain amount of help. Right? And there's a supporter that I have who is taking care of their elderly mother. And so she's getting a certain amount of money every month in order to be her mother's primary caregiver. But it's not enough.
Sure.
And she's in a position right now where if she were to try to hire somebody, then it wouldn't make ends meet. And so she feels like she has no options, right? She has no options to be able to provide the type of care that her mom deserves. And so we can't just, it's not one of those issues where you can just, well, we'll amend this bill, or we'll just throw some more money at this. We need to build things from the ground up that's focused on care, right? Treat it like a customer service business, where right now, if you want to call to get services for a senior, there are 3, maybe 4 different departments or programs that you get transferred between trying to get that care. Right? You need a full-time advocate, and who has time for that? We need a type of program where you can call, you pick up, you dial the 1-800 number, you get connected with a caseworker, and they're able to help you navigate through the program. You know, the Senior Center here has navigators, care navigators, to try to help seniors, but not everybody's aware of that. Not everybody's aware of those programs that are out there, and it shouldn't be so hard to get access to these services. The money is there. The people are there. And I think also by rebuilding things from the ground up, we can also then we can find the inefficiencies that are in the system, and we can hold people accountable who are abusing the system right now.
You'd have to really lead the charge on that, though. I mean, I don't think, as you said so yourself, that it's elderly care is not like in the forefront.
But let's talk about why that is.
Okay, why
let's talk about why that is.
Okay.
Because there's no money in it. There's no money in it for politicians. This is not something that is going to go out there and somebody's going to donate, $100,000 to my campaign to help me get elected because I'm fighting for senior care. And yet it is an issue. And now that I've experienced it personally, firsthand, I can't look the other way.
Yeah.
I know that this problem exists, and so I'm going to fight for it, and I'm going to work to make it better.
Are you ready to champion it as a leader of to make it happen? I mean,
of course.
Okay.
Of course I am.
Let's talk about one of the things that people are talking about, probably more so than anything else about California, is the homeless issue.
Yeah.
What do you think we can do about it? I mean, what are your ideas as far as attacking that problem? I noticed that you have a history of working with the homeless count out in this area.
Yep.
So, tell me about your experience with that.
Well, so I think that the homeless situation is one that, because there are really a lot of systemic problems at the core, at the root of homelessness, whether it's the cost of housing, whether it's mental health and addiction issues, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
There's no silver bullet for homelessness, and there are programs that we can put into place that are going to help people who are experiencing homelessness, right? I think Project Room Key was an incredible example of a program that took existing underutilized resources and put them to good use in getting people off of the streets. But there are other things that we can do, right? I put together a pilot program for a safe parking program here in Santa Clarita that would have gotten people who were living in their cars off of the streets and into a safe parking lot where there would have been lot monitors, they would have had access to restrooms and showers, because a lot of these people are working, right? The people here in our community who are living in their cars. Yeah, they're working. Yeah. And so giving them that opportunity, connecting them to services to get them off of the street and to get them back into housing, right? But sadly, the city council here didn't believe that that was a program that they wanted. And so when there were funding opportunities, they ensured that it wasn't funded. And I feel like that's wrong, that we should be caring for those who are... I
had a discussion with Jason Gibbs the other day about the homeless issue out here, because I think it's roughly the homeless count was about 300 out here. Yeah. And usually my experience with at-risk youth and homelessness is that it's usually about 3 times what the actual count is. So that's still under 1,000 people in the Santa Clarita Valley. That can be solved. I don't know about Los Angeles, but 1,000 people. And his attitude was kind of like, well, it's the county's problem now because they've got that Measure H money. And
so, have you talked to Mike Foley about homelessness?
No.
So Mike actually has a really interesting idea.
Who's Mike Foley?
Well, for those who don't know, Mike Foley runs Bridge to Home, right?
I haven't met him. I talked to Peggy.
Peggy as well.
Yeah.
Mike's got a really interesting idea about homelessness, which is that until people in the community take ownership of the issue, we'll never truly be able to solve it, right? And that you're never going to truly be able to have enough caseworkers to be out there with personal relationships with people who are experiencing homelessness, which is how you get them into treatment, right? That one day when somebody's like, I'm ready. Today is the day I'm ready. I'm ready to get into treatment. Then having a caseworker, having a volunteer, having somebody in the community that they have a relationship and established trust with, that can then get them connected to those services, that's the only way in which we're going to be able to really truly solve homelessness. I think we can put Band-Aids on it, right? I think that there are things that we can do to address the root systemic causes of homelessness, like the housing affordability crisis.
Well, what do you do about that? I mean, the housing affordability problem is all over California.
Well, look, just like all of these other issues that we're talking about, we didn't turn around one day and have a housing affordability problem, right? This is something that's been building and getting to this point for many years. And now it's reached a crisis point, right? I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Valencia, and it's a nice apartment, but we pay almost $3,000 a month in rent.
Do you really?
Almost $3,000 a month in rent, right? I'm paying more for rent for a 2-bedroom apartment. It is time to buy. But how? How am I supposed to buy a home, right?
Right.
How are we supposed to be able to put money aside in order to save for a down payment on a $450,000 home, right? Which is at the low end. And the people that I'm talking to, the people in this community, they bought their homes. They moved here to raise a family because there were great schools and it was safe and it was affordable. They bought starter homes for $250,000. Those options, they no longer exist. And I think that we have to the government isn't going to want to be in the business of building housing, right? We're going to need the developers to build housing. And so there's two ways in which you can do that. One is you either incentivize or you punish them, right? And so I think we need to understand exactly what types of housing that we need out here. And for me, in my mind, that's affordable housing. That's kind of the first time home buyer housing for small families. And, and I want to just take one quick second to talk about what the repercussions of the housing crisis are right now. Because there are people in this community who say, well, you know, I've got my house here. You can't afford it. That's too bad. You don't deserve to live here. But what those people are saying, Stephen, they're not understanding what the consequences of that are. Their children won't be able to afford to live here. They moved here for a quality of life for their family that will no longer be available to their own children. Right? Yeah. I don't think your son is going to be able to afford to live here if we don't address the housing crisis when he's an adult, right?
Yeah. And well, he's not going to be able to afford it anyway because he wants to be a frog salesman or something strange like that.
So I think we need to really look at exactly what housing we need, right? There's housing that's being built here, but the housing that's being built isn't going to really address those root problems. They're not going to address the accessibility and the equity issues that we're faced with. And there's some really interesting ideas right now in Sacramento. There's talk of a fund that would help to kind of be like the silent owner for homes to help people with the affordability issue. There are all kinds of proposals that are out there right now, and I think one of the things that we really can do is make the permitting process much faster and cheaper for the types of housing that we want to see, right? I think that's one of the ways in which you incentivize developers, because for them, if they don't have to wait 5, 10 years to get started on development, and they can start building earlier and they can see the return on their investment earlier, that might just be the type of incentive that it takes to get them to build the type of housing that we need.
And full disclosure, my wife was the head of the Be Smart campaign out here for Moms Demand Action. Now that's your position.
Yes, well, I'm a co-lead. I share the position with Rebecca Hindman and, Frank Blackwell, Dominic Blackwell's father.
Why did you get involved with that?
I don't think that anyone's right to bear arms should supersede someone else's right to live, especially that of a child. And I think that the conversation on guns has become so polarized and so heated and filled with rhetoric that we're not able to even step back to that basic premise that I understand the Second Amendment, right? I understand why it was written and all of that, but your right to bear arms should under no circumstances supersede someone else's right to live, especially that of a child. And, you know, the debate online is moronic, honestly, right? Because then you have to get into these points of like, well, should you be allowed to have a nuclear weapon? Of course not, right? Should you be allowed to have a tank? Of course not.
Should you be allowed
to have an AR-15?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
There was that judge down in San Diego recently who ruled that it was the Swiss Army knife, right?
Right, yeah.
It's perfect for home defense and hunting and all of that. It's insane. The AR-15 is a weapon of war that was designed to be as efficient as possible at taking life. And it should not be in civilian hands, in my mind.
And let's face it, if you need it for hunting, you're a really bad hunter. You're a really bad hunter.
Yeah, I mean, but not to make light of this situation.
I'm not. I think it's just the insanity that it's a
the arguments that you fall into online are insane. And the reality is that I think that the majority of people, responsible gun owners included, can all agree that there are very specific kind of common sense gun rules and regulations that can be put into place to make guns safer for all of us, right? And Be Smart is one of those programs that I fully agree and think the majority of people can get behind and can support, right? Be Smart, for those who don't know, is about safe gun storage in your home, right? It's an educational program to educate people about how they should be storing their weapons and in safe spaces and, you know, separate from ammunition. And it's designed in such a way that I think the majority of people can get behind. And in fact, Oak Tree Gun Club out here used to have postcards, placards about Be Smart that they would give to people with every gun purchase. And so I think those are the types of programs where we can find that common ground. You know, the rhetoric online is insane, but it's not representative, I don't think, of how people truly feel.
Well, see, I agree with you about the AR-15 in particular.
Yeah.
But, you know, with the Heller decision, with the Supreme Court allowing for handguns in cities, and cities can't outlaw and stuff like that, and the recent judge's decision about the AR-15 being like a Swiss Army knife, I mean, how do you combat gun violence when you've got such a... It just seems like every ruling is going the way of the Second Amendment, you know, as far as...
So, I think that California has done a really good job, first and foremost, in terms of, you know, the gun legislation that we have here, and I want to strengthen it. I want to ensure that not only do we have, you know, common sense gun legislation, but that we also have the resources for, you know, those community organizations that are out there in communities educating people about gun violence, doing the work of, you know, repairing the trauma from gun violence. And it's funny because I already know that people are going to say Jonathan wants to take your guns away. Right? You know it.
Yeah.
You know it. I'm a member of Moms Demand Action. Right? There are people who are going to want to say Jonathan wants to take your guns away. And you know what my question is for those people?
Yeah.
How do I do that?
Yeah.
How do I take people's guns away? Because if you know, please tell me. I don't know how. We've got a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court of conservatives, right? We can't.
Yeah.
Even if people wanted to, we couldn't take guns away. And so we have to do everything that we can to make sure that they're safer. And it's insane to me, right? I drove here.
Right.
To drive here, I had to have a license. To get that license, I had to go to training, right? Driver's ed, take a test. I have to have insurance. I have to yearly register that vehicle and pay taxes and fees. And I have to have insurance so that if I hurt somebody through the operation of that vehicle,
right,
then that other person is taken care of, right? That their bills are accounted for. How do we not have similar legislation for guns, right? You can't tell me, we live in Santa Clarita, right? We're a commuter town. You can't tell me that somebody's access to a gun is more important than their access to a car. Right. And yet we don't have a Second Amendment for cars.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the type of thing that I would want to work on, that I think would really help with the scourge of gun violence that we're experiencing.
Do you feel is this the first time you run for anything ever?
Well, aside from the city council campaign for where I was in it for 3 months and then suspended it, yes, it is.
Okay. Do you consider yourself a person of compromise or a fighter?
Well, look, we live in a purple district.
Yeah.
We have to find ways to work together with people and bring people together. And I think that fighting for those core values for which there can be no compromise, like for me on guns and housing and homelessness and the environment, there can't be compromise.
Yeah.
There's respectful conversation, right? I want to hear from people who have opposing views of mine. I will have a respectful conversation with them and dialogue about the issues. There was a woman that I talked to who shared her experience with me on abortion, right? Where she was pregnant, she had an abortion, her fiance died, right? She always regrets getting that abortion. That doesn't change my opinion. I don't think that, now we should come in and legislate because of her experience.
Right.
But I'm able to have that conversation with her. I'm able to talk to her respectfully in a way in which she feels in a safe place to share that story with me. Right? And I think that that's important. I think that's how we heal some of the division and the divide that we see in this community. And I see the smile on your face, Stephen. Well, I know you're going to accuse me of being an optimist, but I am an optimist. I am an optimist.
Yes, you are. I was actually going to just sum it up by saying, so you're a person of compromise, in the sense of that you're willing to work with the other side. I'm not trying to.
No, of course. Yeah. But there are certain things for which we draw the line, and we say that these are things which we cannot compromise, which are too important and are too core to our values. But I will always listen to the opposing side.
The reason I was smiling is because it was a very diplomatic answer, spoken like a politician.
But that doesn't make it not the truth.
No, I didn't. I wasn't saying that.
I was just truth. But you do bring up a good point, which is that people don't trust politicians because they haven't been honest with them.
Yeah.
They go out there and they use these bite-sized, tweet, poll-tested messages that don't say anything. Right? They don't say anything. And then they go and they don't bring home the goods on what they promised that they were going to do. And people lose faith. And that's how we ended up with a person like Trump. We ended up with a person like Trump because people lost faith in both Democrats and Republicans, and they saw him as, a Hail Mary.
A Hail Mary.
A Hail Mary.
I think you're right.
Right? Of these guys aren't getting it done for me. Maybe this person can. And they were really struggling, and they were really having a hard time. And the lives that they thought they were going to have were no longer available to them anymore.
Right.
And so we have to do a better job of representing them, of being their voice. And we have to do a better job of having respectful conversations with people, of being honest, of Suzette going out there and saying, yes, I agree that we should, celebrate Pride or we shouldn't. But put your name on it.
Right.
There was an incident that we had here in Santa Clarita over 4th of July where there was a rally, and a participant in the rally had a type of Confederate flag flown from the back of their truck. And Mike Garcia and Suzette Valadares, they both were they were participants in that rally. And I think it's abhorrent that flag, that symbol of bigotry and hatred was displayed in our community. And I think that it is incumbent on our politicians to show leadership and to apologize when they participate in things like that, and to condemn the people who flew that flag.
Well, she's going to, I haven't spoken to her about it, but I'm assuming that her response would be, it was one guy with one truck, I didn't even see that truck.
Sure. And then go out there and say, but that flag should not be flown, and I condemn the person who did. And I apologize if my actions and my participation in that event offended people. Because of course, these things happen. She might not have known that was going to be a part of it, but she still has to own up for the fact that she was a part of that rally. And what I did is I put a video saying this exact thing out on Twitter. These statements of, that are poll tested and grinded out by the consultants, it should come from you, right? It should come from your heart, and you should communicate that to the voters. You should allow them you should do them the respect of giving them the opportunity to vote for who you are. And the only way you can do that is being honest and authentic and having the hard conversations and saying sometimes, I don't know the answer. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out there and I'm going to find the expert. Just yesterday I was talking with somebody about education who spent 30 years, right, their whole career working in education. Of course she's going to have more experience than me.
Yeah.
I want to hear from her. I want to understand what her perspective is, what she thinks are the challenges, and then find ways to work with her to fix those situations. But I can't do that unless I'm listening to them and unless I'm having respectful, honest conversations with people in the community. And that's the type of campaign that I want to run. That's the type of campaign that I can be proud of later afterwards.
As a Democrat, let me challenge you a little bit here.
Challenge me.
Okay.
Let's go.
Name one bad Democratic policy. And then afterwards, name one good Republican policy.
Okay. Well, the crime bill.
Okay.
Right? The crime bill that Biden signed.
Yeah.
That was a bad bill.
Okay.
That was a bad bill that had unintended consequences, and it was a product of the time and the thinking on what the possible solutions were to crime. But we've learned from that, and we've evolved, and even Biden says so himself. Right?
Good Republican policy.
Well, how about this? You give me an example of a policy and you ask me what I think of it.
Of a Republican? No.
Yeah.
Dude, it's my show. The other way around.
And what I'm telling you is right now, I can't necessarily think of one. Well, what I will say is that, Suzette, she had a bill that she got through for women who were the victims of domestic violence, right? And I think that was a good bill.
Okay.
And I'm glad that she got that through.
Okay.
I don't think she's a bad person.
No, Suzette's great.
I don't think she's a bad person.
Yeah,
I think she's in an impossible situation. I think she's a Republican in a Democratic-controlled, supermajority. She's got her right flank she's terrified of, and she's got, people in the middle that she's got to win over because it's a purple district, and she's trying to navigate this balancing act, but I don't think it's accurately reflecting who we are.
Let me ask you about one bill that I think hurt Christie quite a bit in her congressional race, was AB 5.
Yeah.
Would you have supported it?
I think if I had been in the legislature at the time, that I probably would have supported it.
Yeah.
And I think that I would have been one of the ones who tried to make it better afterwards.
Yeah, okay.
I think that writing legislation is complicated.
Sure.
Right? And these are really significant challenges and problems that we're trying to solve. Right? They were trying to ensure that people receive the type of benefits and weren't being taken advantage of by employers. But there were unintended consequences to that piece of legislation, and it's incumbent upon legislators to go out there and say, we made a mistake, we hear you, we were wrong, and here's how we're making it better.
Yeah.
I think that's political leadership and courage, to go out there and say, we were wrong, and I hear you, and I'm going to make it better.
All right, we're headed to the lightning round.
The lightning round, okay.
Yes. So the first thing is we're going to do Ryan's question. My 10-year-old son, he has a question always. His question to you is this.
Hey Jonathan, if you are a real rocket scientist, why are you running for office? Why don't you go in space instead?
Well, I would get really nauseous in those big, like the gyros.
Right.
I couldn't handle the G's, Ryan. I'm sorry. Not everyone's cut out to be an astronaut. And God, to fly.
Are you a pilot? Are you a pilot?
No, I'm not a pilot. At one point, I thought about it, and I just I didn't have the time or the resources to go get the certification.
But it just seems like if you're an aeronautical engineer, you would
I love
fly.
flying.
Yeah.
I mean, even just for travel. Even for travel, I love flying.
Can't stand it.
You ask a question, and maybe we're going to get to this one, so I'm just going to jump ahead, which is like, who would you have dinner with?
Yeah.
If you had the opportunity, and I had 3 answers, so I hope you'll indulge me.
What are your 3 answers?
So, I'm always fascinated by the capacity of the imagination of the human spirit, and so to just get to have sat and talked with the Wright brothers, before that flight, right? To say that this is possible, to say that we can leave this Earth and we can fly in the sky with the birds, to see the optimism, to hear the optimism in that person, and where that led us to, I think would be incredible. I grew up playing tennis, and so I'm always fascinated by those who manage to achieve the pinnacle of success. And so for me, I grew up watching Steffi Graf and Pete Sampras and Andre Agassi. If I could have dinner with all of them and Serena Williams and Federer and just understand the mentality of that person who reaches that point of excellence and manages to stay there. Yeah. Right? And the dedication and to understand where that comes from, I think would be fascinating. And I would love to get a chance to talk with Obama, right? President Obama, and to really understand what was happening behind the scenes, right? Because he had so much hope for the future, and I think politics really limited what he was able to accomplish, and I want to be able to learn from that. I want to be able to learn from my own experience and hope for what I want to be able to achieve. What worked, what didn't work, what would he do differently?
That wasn't actually one of my questions, by the way.
You asked that question a lot.
No,
so.
Okay. What was the first concert you went to?
I don't remember the first one, but I remember the last one, which was kind of before everything shut down, and it was at the Hollywood Bowl, and it was the LA Philharmonic doing the original soundtrack to the Harry Potter films, and then they would put the film up on the screen as the scene was playing, and they were playing the score, and it was incredible.
I was looking for Jackson Browne or something like that. I mean, it's like first pop artist that you first concert.
I haven't gone to a lot of pop concerts. No.
Who's your favorite musician?
Right now, 21 Pilots.
21 Pilots. Okay.
I love them.
You and my kids should hang out then.
You know the origin of their name?
No.
So there's a play by Arthur Miller called All My Sons, and if you haven't read it, you absolutely have to.
Okay.
And in this play, I'm gonna spoil it for all of your viewers and listeners, but 21 American pilots die because of a mal-manufactured part. And it's about the consequences of that. And I mean, the fact that they would reference an Arthur Miller play, who's my favorite playwright, in the name of their band, I mean, plus their music is incredible, so.
Debatable. What's your favorite movie?
Oh, God, there are so many. Recently we watched The King's Speech again, and you like that movie? I love that movie. I can watch pretty much anything with Daniel Day-Lewis over and over again. And then one of our guilty pleasures is The Meg with Jason Statham and the giant shark. It's a guilty pleasure, but I love it so much. It's just so cheeky and fun. And
I get you.
You can't help but laugh. So.
Marvel or DC?
Come on. Is that even a question? Like Marvel, all the way. Like DC characters, they're just so flat and boring, and Marvel characters, they have so much context to them, but part of that is that they got to have 700 million movies to really explore all of it and to delve into their characters, but Marvel all the way.
Let's see, Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
Star Wars without a question, huh?
Without a question,
favorite
Star
Disney
Wars.
character?
Although, I will say, I haven't seen episode 2 or 3 of Star Wars. I loved 4, 5, and 6. Hated episode 1 with a passion. Felt like it was a betrayal to my childhood. Refused to watch 2 and 3, but then I really liked 7, 8, and 9 when it came
3's
back.
not bad. 3's not terrible.
3's not bad? Is that the one where Anakin, you were the chosen one, and I have the high ground? So I know the memes, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, that's not, it's not terrible. It's just not really, for Star Wars, not a big endorsement there. Richard Donner, director of Superman, just recently passed away.
Okay.
Did he make you believe a man can fly?
No. He didn't. But
okay, well, this interview's over.
But I believe that that a hero can.
Yeah.
Right? Superman wasn't a man. He was a hero, and that he was what we hoped to be, and he was our dreams, and he was the best of us. And so, can man fly? No. Could Superman? Yes.
The correct answer was just yes. Who was the best Superman? George Reeves, Christopher Reeve, Henry Cavill, or Brandon Routh?
Reeves. I like
George Reeves.
Christopher Reeves.
Okay.
Reeves. I like Cavill. I like his iteration of it, but it's a little too moody for me. A little too.
I agree with you on that. I think Christopher Reeve is Superman beyond a doubt. What did you think of Bill and Ted Face the Music?
Haven't seen it.
Shame on you. Seen any of the Bill and Ted movies?
Sure.
Okay.
But haven't seen the new one.
Well, okay.
Well, I think that there's too much of remaking intellectual property.
Yeah.
I want to see original stories. I want to see new stuff out there, right? And we're getting so many remakes of things, and we're on the 9th iteration of Star Wars, and it's like, tell a unique story, right? I want to see something new.
You worked in Hollywood. You know that's not going to happen.
I do know it's not going to happen, but I want it to happen anyways.
What's your opinion on the new Ducktales?
The new Ducktales? I haven't seen it.
Have you ever watched Ducktales?
It's forever ago. It wasn't my favorite growing up. For me, it was G.I. Joe and Tom and Jerry. Oh, wow.
G.I. Joe
and Tom and Jerry.
Hero. Knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe.
And Captain Planet.
Captain Planet. Captain Planet. From
where the rings all come together.
What's a food you can't stand?
Uni. I love pretty much everything, but the raw, what's it called? The shellfish with the spikes, the sea anemone.
Yeah. No,
couldn't do it. Not a fan.
Any tattoos?
No tattoos.
If you were going to get a tattoo, what would it be? And where?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like not having a tattoo is... I never found something that I felt like I wanted to have on my body that would represent me forever, right? I feel like tattoos is something that reminds you of who you are at a specific point in time, and I've never had that thing that I was so connected to that I wanted to have a forever memory on my body. in that way.
Yeah, well, my one tattoo is my one tattoo,
there you go.
and I wanted it for over 20 years, so I kind of figured, well,
I'm glad you got it.
Yeah,
because it means something to you.
Yeah, give me your elevator pitch and just your website. Why somebody should vote for you. You got like 30 seconds. 30
seconds. All right. The website is Ahmadi for Assembly, and you should vote for me because I've done the work here. I know the issues that this community is faced with, and I can make real positive change for people.
Okay, and then give me your best evil villain laugh.
Okay. I knew you were going to do this.
Hey, you're an actor, man.
I have to say, my favorite evil villains are like the Thanos, right? Who's stoic, or Gary Oldman in Air Force One.
Yeah.
Incredible. But I'm going to do it because it's your show and because you want me to, so I'm going to do it.
Brilliant. That's a sound sample right there, man.
I didn't love it, but I can't watch any of my stuff.
So you talk about these voices of these great villains and stuff like that. I'm waiting for the moment where they have like Thanos or somebody like that who has a voice instead of like this deep, echoey voice. Like a high pitched voice, like they've been on helium. You know, just like completely.
I feel like that's a Bond villain, though, right? I feel like that's more of a Bond villain than like the superhero villain.
I'll give you that.
The Bond villains, they had character, right? Like think of like Goldfinger, right? Or Dr. No, or like or
Blofeld, and give me a joke.
All right, so I told you I was going to do this. My favorite is I love really corny dad jokes.
Okay.
And so if you're a fan of Reddit, go to /dadjokes. Okay, this one's really good.
Okay.
There are only two white people in the movie Black Panther. Martin Freeman and Andy Serkis. They also play roles in The Lord of the Rings. I guess that makes them the Tolkien white guys. So good, right?
Yeah.
It kills Ashley because I'll just like lay in wake at night, like I'm in bed, just reading through the dad jokes, just laughing, and she's just shakes her head at me.
I gotcha. Well, Jonathan, I wish you much luck in the election and the campaign.
Thank you.
We're talking at least about possibly doing a debate in the future for 38. Are you
I would love to.
Okay.
I would absolutely love to.
Well, we'll see if the other guys that are involved in these campaigns are for
gals.
it as well. Gals is, excuse me. Well, guys is androgynous at this point, I think. But what do I know? But come back and see us.
I would
wish you much luck, and we hope you guys enjoyed the talk.
You've been listening to the Talk of Santa Clarita. Listen to us on iTunes, SoundCloud.com, YouTube, and Stitcher. Barring a life event getting in the way, a new podcast is available every Tuesday. Questions, comments, and show ideas can be sent to thetalkofsantaclarita@gmail.com. You can also call or text us at 661-505-8672. That's 661-505-8672. Follow us on Twitter at The Talk of SC or on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at The Talk of Santa Clarita. You can also visit our website by going to www.thetalkofsantaclarita.com. This has been a production of Radio Free Santa Clarita Incorporated, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. To donate, go to radiofreesantaclarita.org/donate. Radio Free Santa Clarita, on the net and on the air, and we're very much aware.
Any questions?